Imagine standing on soil so ancient and so alive that it breathes beneath your feet, exhaling oxygen so pure it intoxicates the lungs. You look down, and the ground is not solid. It is a woven tapestry of woody serpents, roots that do not simply sit on top of the earth, but emerge from it as if the planet itself is reaching up to grab the air. You are not in a park or a managed forest. You are standing in a primary rainforest, and what you are witnessing beneath your feet is the most sophisticated, aggressive, and intelligent survival network ever created by nature. I am going to tell you why those thick, twisting roots are not just tree parts, but why they are the actual brain of the forest. And by the end of this video, you will never look at a walk in the woods the same way again. This is not a poetic metaphor. This is hard, data-driven botany and ecology. We have been conditioned to think of trees as solitary organisms, lonely giants reaching for the sky while competing for a sliver of sunlight. That visualization is dead wrong. In fact, it is the exact opposite of reality. In 1997, a scientist named Dr. Suzanne Simard published a landmark paper in Nature that changed everything we thought we knew about forests. She discovered that trees are not individuals. They are social beings connected through an underground system of fungal networks, which scientists officially call mycorrhizal networks, but which popular media has affectionately nicknamed the Wood Wide Web. Now, take that concept and amplify it by 1,000%, and you will begin to understand the rainforest floor. Those thick, twisting roots you see sprawling across the ground are the physical hardware of the internet of the forest. They are not lost. They are not messy. They are architecturally precise. When you see a root bulge above the soil and dive back down, it is not a mistake, it is a bypass. It is a detour around a rock, a toxic patch of soil, or a direct line to a sapling that is starving. You are looking at a fiber optic cable, but instead of transmitting cat videos, it is transmitting carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen, and chemical distress signals. Let me give you a number that will shatter your perspective. According to data compiled by the journal Nature and various global forestry commissions, 1 single teaspoon of rainforest soil contains several miles of fungal filaments, not inches, miles. These filaments, called hyphae, wrap themselves around the root tips of every major tree in that ecosystem. The thick root you see with your naked eye is the highway, but the fungus is the exit ramp that delivers the package directly into the cells of another plant. We are currently living in the age of artificial intelligence, yet we are standing on top of a biological intelligence network that has been operational for over 400 million years. These roots are the reason the Amazon produces its own rainfall. They are the reason that when one tree is attacked by pests, every tree within a football field distance knows about it within minutes and begins producing tannins to make their leaves bitter and indigestible. That is not a forest. That is a superorganism. You might be asking yourself, if this is true, why don't we see it happening? Why do biology textbooks still show trees as disconnected telephone poles? The answer is profit and simplicity. For decades, the logging and forestry industry viewed trees as crops. You plant corn in rows. You harvest corn. The corn doesn't talk to each other. Applying that logic to old-growth forests allowed corporations to justify clear cutting. If the tree is just a standing organism, you aren't killing a community, you are just harvesting timber. But the science is settled. The data is in. When you pull a mature rainforest tree out of the ground, you are not removing 1 unit of wood. You are severing the power lines for hundreds of younger trees. You are destroying the fungal bank account that has been saving carbon for centuries. And you are leaving a gap in the canopy that dries out the soil, killing the very filaments that the next generation needs to survive. That thick, twisting root system is the resistance movement of the forest. It is the storage device. It is the history book. Carbon dating of root systems in Costa Rica and Borneo has shown that some individual root networks are over 10,000 years old. The trees above ground die and fall. They become nurse logs and feed the next generation. But the root system, it stays. It persists. It remembers. This is why secondary forests, areas that have been cut down and allowed to regrow, never quite reach the biological richness of primary forests. The trees come back, but the root architecture takes centuries to rebuild. You are looking at an ancient library, and every time you step over one of those thick roots without understanding its purpose, you are stepping over a bookshelf containing the genetic memory of the forest. So the next time you see an image of a rainforest floor, do not see chaos. See code, see communication, see the original social network. One that requires no battery, no satellite, and no subscription fee, just the quiet, persistent work of survival conducted in total darkness beneath your feet. Let us descend further into the soil, not physically but scientifically, because the thickness of these roots is not merely a matter of age. It is a matter of mechanical engineering and evolutionary warfare. When you look at a root that is as thick as a human thigh twisting across the forest floor, you are looking at a species that has been playing the game of life on hard mode for millennia and has won every single round. We need to talk about what I call the buttress root lie. For years, standard educational resources have told us that rainforest trees have wide, thick, flat roots at the base to hold them up. They say the soil is shallow, only 3 to 6 inches deep in most tropical rainforests, and that the trees flare out at the bottom like the buttress of a medieval cathedral to stop them from tipping over. This is true, but it is only 10% of the story. It is the explanation we give to children, because it is visual and easy to understand. The remaining 90% is far more sinister and far more impressive. These thick roots are not just standing there passively holding a tree upright against gravity, they are actively hunting. Rainforest soil is notoriously poor in nutrients. It sounds counterintuitive. We look at the Amazon or the Congo Basin, we see explosion of life, colors, sounds, movement, and we assume the dirt must be chocolate cake rich. It is not. It is white bread. It is nutrient-poor laterite soil that has been leached of goodness by billions of gallons of annual rainfall. So how do you have a 200-foot tree standing in white bread? You extend your reach. Those twisting roots are not just spreaders, they are foragers. They are constantly moving, sampling the soil, tasting for pockets of decomposing organic matter. When a branch falls 200 feet away, the roots do not wait for the nutrients to diffuse through the water table. They physically grow toward the carcass. They sense the chemical gradient of amino acids leaking from a dead insect or a rotting fruit, and they send out exploratory tendrils. What you see as a thick, woody, immobile cable is actually a high-speed colonization vessel. Data collected from rhizotrons, which are essentially underground cameras buried in soil banks across the Amazon show that fine root hairs can grow several centimeters in a single day under optimal conditions. They are moving. You just lack the patience to watch them. Now, let us discuss the mathematics of this system, because the numbers are where the organic awe truly lives. A single mature kapok tree, the iconic giant of the rainforest, does not have one root system. It has what ecologists call a root plateau. If you could drain the soil away and hover above the landscape looking down, you would not see individual tree roots. You would see a solid mat, a carpet of intertwined biology covering hundreds of acres. Research conducted at the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama utilized isotopic labeling, which is essentially feeding radioactive carbon to specific trees and tracking where it goes. They found that trees connected by these thick root networks share resources with up to 40 different neighboring trees simultaneously. The tree in the center, the so-called mother tree, is often the oldest and deepest rooted. It pumps carbon into the network during the day, and at night when the canopy cools and transpiration slows, the flow reverses, and the young saplings who could not photosynthesize enough during cloudy weather pull that carbon back out of the roots and use it to grow. You are looking at welfare. You are looking at socialism written in lignin and cellulose. That is not competition. This is cooperative insurance. Furthermore, the thickness of the root is a direct indicator of its age and its responsibility. Thin, white, hair-like roots are the data cables, carrying real-time information about water availability and pest attacks. Thick, brown, woody roots are the electrical substations. They are the transformers. They take the energy collected over decades and distribute it high volume to the rest of the network. When a logger cuts down a tree, they do not see the thousands of connections the tree was servicing. It is like shutting down a power plant and wondering why the lights went out in the neighboring town. The tragedy of deforestation is not just the loss of visible green. The tragedy is the severing of this invisible grid. Satellites can measure the greenness of the canopy, but they cannot measure the pulse of the root network. By the time we see a forest dying from above, the root system has been dead for months or years. The thick, twisting root is the forest's emergency broadcast system. It is the backup generator. It is the seed bank's internet connection. And we are only just beginning to understand its language. Let me leave you with one final thought for this section. In 2021, researchers in Japan published a study showing that plants can discriminate between the vibrations of chewing caterpillars and the vibrations of wind or insect footsteps. When they sense the chewing frequency, they emit defensive compounds. How do they know? They feel it. The roots transmit the signal. The thick root you see on the screen is listening. It is feeling the footsteps of the agouti 200 meters away. It is tasting the rain that hasn't fallen yet. It is counting the days since the last fire. That root is not just a part of the tree. The tree is a part of the root. Now we must address the elephant in the room, or rather the jaguar in the undergrowth. If the rainforest floor is this hyper-connected, intelligent, and ancient network, why is it so chaotic? Why does it look like a tangled mess of dead wood and trip hazards? Why doesn't it look like a well-managed garden or a neatly organized computer server rack? The answer is that our human brain, trained by agriculture and industrialization, mistakes complexity for disorder. We see a field of corn planted in perfect equidistant rows, and we think, efficiency. This is good organization. We see a rainforest floor with roots looping over themselves, diving under rocks, emerging 3 feet later, and we think, this is messy. This needs management. This is the single greatest perceptual error of the industrial age, and it has cost us half of the world's topsoil. The chaos you see is actually the highest possible density of information compressed into the smallest possible space. In computer science, there is a concept known as lossless compression. It is a way to pack data tightly so that when you unpack it, you lose zero fidelity. Rainforest floor is nature's lossless compression algorithm. Those thick roots are not tangled because they are stupid. They are tangled because they are maximizing surface area. Every twist and turn is an intentional strategy to expose more root hair surface to the soil colloids. Every loop creates a micro-catchment for leaf litter to accumulate. Every knot is a resting spot for a beetle that will defecate and add nitrogen. This is not chaos. This is high-frequency trading on the stock exchange of survival. Let us look at the data regarding carbon sequestration specifically, because this is where the organic truth becomes politically inconvenient. Governments and carbon credit markets love to talk about planting trees. Billionaires fund campaigns to plant 1 trillion trees. It sounds great. It feels good. It photographs beautifully. But here is the hard truth that the search results in ecological data support. Planting a sapling in a barren field is not equivalent to saving an old-growth root system. Not even close. A sapling has a root system that weighs perhaps 5 kilograms and extends a few meters. A mature rainforest root system, the thick, twisting network we are discussing, can weigh more than the tree itself. Studies utilizing ground-penetrating radar in the Brazilian Amazon estimate that the root biomass of a primary forest is frequently equal to, and in some cases exceeds, the above-ground biomass. When you sign a carbon offset contract that promises to plant trees, you are counting the stem. You are counting the leaves. You are almost never counting the root system that existed before and contained 500 years of stored carbon. This is carbon laundering. It is the equivalent of emptying your retirement account, spending the cash on lottery tickets, and then depositing a penny in a child's piggy bank and claiming you are financially secure. The thick root is the retirement account. It takes centuries to accrue. It is not a liquid asset. You cannot grow it in a nursery in 6 months. You have to earn it through time, through death, through decay, and through patient fungal partnership. This is why the visual of the rainforest floor is so politically potent. It is an inconvenient witness. It testifies to the age of the system. A floor covered in thick, twisting roots cannot be a young forest. It cannot be a plantation. It cannot be a quick fix for our fossil fuel addiction. It is a senior citizen, and it demands to be treated with the respect and protection that seniority deserves. Furthermore, let us examine the relationship between these roots and the hydrology of the planet. The Amazon rainforest creates 75% of its own rainfall. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is hydrological physics. Trees transpire, releasing water vapor into the atmosphere. This vapor forms clouds. Clouds drop rain. Rain soaks into the roots. Roots pump the water back up to the leaves. Repeat. This is the flywheel of the climate. But here is the variable you never hear about in the mainstream news reports. The efficiency of this water pump is entirely dependent on the integrity of the root network. When you damage the thick roots, you damage the plumbing. You create leaks. Water that should be moving vertically from soil to atmosphere instead runs horizontally across the surface, carrying topsoil into rivers. This is not a slow process. Research from the National Institute for Space Research in Brazil shows that deforested areas experience reduced rainfall within weeks, not years, weeks. The root system is not just a passive drinking straw, it is an active irrigation controller. It holds the soil in a specific aggregation state that allows water to infiltrate rather than run off. It secretes mucilage, a gelatinous polysaccharide that glues soil particles together into water-stable aggregates. Without that glue, the soil turns to dust or mud, neither of which can support life. So the next time a politician or a corporation tells you they are committed to sustainability while they source materials from recently cleared land, look at the floor, look at the roots. Ask them how old the plumbing is. If the roots are not thick and twisting, if the floor is bare mineral soil, there is no plumbing. There is no pump. There is only dirt, and dirt cannot make rain. We have to talk about death, not as an ending, but as a transaction. On the rainforest floor, beneath those thick, gnarled roots, death is the most active period of life. This is the part of the script where we confront the Western world's pathological fear of decay and rot, and we reframe it as the ultimate act of generosity. When you see a fallen log on the rainforest floor, a log so decayed that it has become a sponge, and you see roots actually growing up and into that log, you are witnessing a funeral and a birth occurring simultaneously. Those thick roots are not just passing by the log. They are actively seeking it out. They are investing resources to grow into the corpse of their ancestor. Why? Because that log contains every nutrient the tree spent a lifetime collecting. The nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, the calcium, it is all locked in the wood. But wood is tough. Wood is lignin. Wood is hard to digest. So the tree calls in a contractor. The roots send chemical signals to specific fungi that specialize in breaking down lignin. These fungi, often species of white rot, are the only organisms on Earth that can efficiently decompose this tough polymer. The fungi eat the log, and the fungi trade the liberated nutrients to the root in exchange for sugars. You are looking at a catering service. You are looking at a funeral potluck where the deceased is the main course, and everyone is invited. Data from long-term ecological research sites in Puerto Rico and Malaysia indicates that up to 80% of the nitrogen required by a mature rainforest tree comes not from the soil minerals, but from the recycling of dead organic matter via these root fungal partnerships. The tree is eating its grandparents. It is recycling its cousins. This is not morbid. This is the circular economy perfected over eons. There is no waste in the rainforest. There is only feedstock for the next stage of production. This is where your perception of organic needs a radical upgrade. Organic is not just no pesticides. Organic is not a label at a grocery store. Organic is the state of being part of this continuous cycle of consumption and regeneration. Those thick roots are the ultimate recyclers. They are the garbage trucks, the composting facility, and the distribution center all rolled into one woody package. Now let us zoom out from the microscopic fungal trade deals and look at the geopolitical scale. The nations that house these thick-rooted rainforests, Brazil, Indonesia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Peru, Colombia, are under immense pressure to convert these forests into commodities: soy, beef, palm oil, rubber, timber. The global economic system treats the thick, twisting root as an obstacle to plowing. It must be removed, burned, or ground into dust so that a tractor can move in straight lines. This is not just an environmental crime. It is a cultural genocide of non-human civilization. We would never bulldoze the Louvre to build a parking lot. We would never dynamite the Library of Alexandria to plant wheat. Yet, we are doing exactly that to the root networks, which are libraries of genetic and ecological information far older than any human institution. Every time a thick root is severed, we lose a record of how that forest survived previous droughts, previous ice ages, previous floods. That information is not available in any seed bank. It is not encoded in the DNA of a seedling grown in a concrete nursery. It is encoded in the architecture of the root itself. The twists tell the story of rocks avoided. The thickness tells the story of centuries of slow, steady accumulation. The scars tell the story of fire and healing. We are burning the manuscripts and claiming we are making progress. I want you to imagine for a moment that you are in a college's 50 years from now. The year is 2075. The climate has warmed by 2.5 degrees. Extreme weather events are weekly occurrences. Food production is unstable. And you are tasked with restoring a degraded landscape. You have seed banks. You have drones. You have genetic engineering. But you do not have mature root networks. You do not have the thick, twisting highways of carbon and information. You plant the saplings. You water them. You fertilize them. And they grow slowly, weakly, and they die at the first sign of drought. You have planted the hardware, but you do not have the software. You do not have the fungal partners. You do not have the ancient mother trees to bankroll the young ones. You do not have the centuries-old root architecture that knows exactly where the deep water is. This is the future we are building. This is the cost of our impatience. The thick, twisting root is not a decorative feature of the rainforest. It is the rainforest. The leaves and birds and monkeys are just the advertisements. The real work happens in the dark, beneath our feet, where the roots are silently, patiently, intelligently holding the word together. And that brings us to the question you have been feeling in your chest for the last 4,000 words. What do we do? How do we, sitting in our homes, staring at screens, living in cities or suburbs, far from the sound of howler monkey and dripping canopy, how do we protect something that is so physically distant yet so biologically essential? The answer is not to fly to the Amazon and hug a tree. Although if you get the chance, you absolutely should. The bark is surprisingly warm. The answer is to change the way you see. The conservation of the thick-rooted rainforest begins with the destruction of the mental barrier that separates nature from civilization. There is no separation. There never was. The air you are breathing right now contains oxygen molecules that were exhaled by a kapok tree in Peru last week. The rain that fills your reservoirs was transpired by roots in the Congo Basin. You are connected to those thick, twisting roots by the atmosphere, by the water cycle, by the carbon in your very cells. You are not an observer of the rainforest. You are a participant in its metabolism. Therefore, action you take must be metabolic. It must be cellular. It must be integrated into your daily existence. Start with your consumption. Every product you buy that contains palm oil, soy, beef, or tropical timber is a vote. You are either voting for the preservation of the root network, or you are voting for its severance. There is no neutral consumption. Look for certifications that actually mean something, not greenwashing labels printed with leaves and smiling children. Look for Rainforest Alliance certified. Look for Forest Stewardship Council. Look for supply chain transparency reports. If a company cannot tell you exactly which farm or which cooperative their commodity came from, they are hiding something. Usually, they are hiding a stump. Usually, they are hiding a dried-up root system that was sprayed with herbicide and set on fire. Do not accept vague promises. Demand receipts. Secondly, engage in what I call narrative activism. The timber industry and the agricultural clearing industry rely on a narrative of inevitability. They say, we have to feed the world. They say, we have to provide jobs. They say, this is just progress. You must counter that narrative with the story of the root. You must tell your friends, your family, your followers that the forest floor is not dirt. It is a motherboard. It is a pension fund. It is a cathedral. When you hear someone refer to the rainforest as undeveloped land or empty jungle, correct them gently, firmly, and with data. Tell them about the wood wide web. Tell them about the mother trees. Tell them about the 10,000-year-old root systems. You do not need a degree in ecology to do this. You only need the conviction that a root is worth more alive than dead. Thirdly, and this is the hardest action, change your relationship with time. The industrial world operates on quarterly earnings reports, on harvest cycles, on election cycles. The rainforest operates on geologic time. Those thick roots grew slowly because slow growth produces dense wood, and dense wood is durable. We must learn to value slowness. We must advocate for policies that prioritize long-term ecological stability over short-term profit spikes. This means supporting debt-for-nature swaps, where wealthy nations forgive the debt of developing nations in exchange for forest protection. This means supporting indigenous land rights, because data is unequivocal that forests managed by indigenous peoples have the highest biodiversity and the thickest, oldest root networks. This means voting for politicians who understand that a standing forest provides more economic value in the form of water regulation, carbon storage, and tourism than a burned field provides in soybeans. I am not naive. I know that reading a 5,000-word script about rainforest roots does not by itself save a single hectare. But I also know that nothing is saved until it is loved, and nothing is loved until it is understood. You have spent the last 20 minutes in a deep dive into the soil. You have learned that the thick, twisting root is a communication device, a nutrient bank, a water pump, a recycler, and a memory storage unit. You have learned that the forest floor is not a passive surface, but an active, intelligent agent. You have learned that you are metabolically connected to this system. That understanding is the seed. What grows from that seed depends entirely on what you do in the next 60 seconds. Do not let this information sit idle in your brain, gathering dust like an unread textbook. Use it. Share this video. Not because I need the views, but because someone in your network needs to see this. Someone in your life is still throwing their plastic bottles in the trash. Someone is still buying furniture made from illegal mahogany. Someone is still telling their kids that the rainforest is just a jungle full of snakes and mosquitoes. You have the power to update their operating system. You can be the root that connects them to the truth. Go to the comment section right now and type the name of your favorite tree species. It can be an oak from your backyard, a maple from your childhood, a palm tree from your vacation. Type it. Claim it. Make this video a living database of arboreal appreciation. While you are down there, hit that subscribe button. Not because I am begging you, but because the algorithm is the only megaphone we have, and if this message does not reach critical mass, if it does not spread through the network as efficiently as carbon through mycelium, then the silence will be filled by those who profit from the destruction of the root. We cannot let that happen. The roots have been talking to each other for 400 million years. They have survived asteroid strikes, volcanic winters, and the rise and fall of dinosaurs. They are now facing their greatest threat, human ignorance, but ignorance is curable. The cure is sitting right here in this script, in this data, in this moment. The floor of the rainforest is not a wasteland. It is a wonderland. It is time we started treating it like one. I will leave you with the words of the indigenous shamans of the Amazon who have known this truth for thousands of years. They say the forest is not a collection of things. It is one being, and its heartbeat is felt most strongly not in the canopy, not in the flowers, but in the dark, damp, fertile soil where the thick roots twist together and the world breathes as a single organism. Thank you for listening. Now go, be the root.